Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. All right, welcome back to Innovation Unplugged, a production of the ACCS Innovation Center. I'm Houston Blackwood. I'm the workforce director for this group, and today I have two very fun guests. I've got our executive director, Julie Frizzell, and our special guest today, David Cole from Reid State Technical College. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. We have 24 different colleges with all different names, so I always have to get nervous about how I introduce that. So welcome, David. We're glad that you are here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you your drive was pretty short this morning, right?
Yeah, just 3.5 hours, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, so 7 hours of driving for a 45-minute recording, but
some good quiet time, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
Better than being in an
You can
office.
go back and listen to all the episodes of Innovation Unplugged.
I can get caught up by
There
some
you
of
go.
You can get pretty close. Well, thanks for being here. I know it is a haul, and what I really appreciate is we like when our colleges join us, by Zoom or in person, but it's always a little bit better here, just because humans like to be together. It works out best. But give us a little background, Dave. I mean, a lot of folks know you. You've been around the system for a long time, but this goes to a big audience that may not know who David Cole is or where Reid State is. And but where'd you come from? How did you get to Reid State?
Okay. Well, I'm David Allen Cole. As a friend of mine likes to say, I'm the real David Allen Cole. I started at Reid State about 9 years ago. When I graduated high school, I wound up going into the military. I spent 26 years in the military. And then on my last deployment, I hurt my shoulder. So I couldn't continue my career, so I had to medical retire. And so I couldn't go back to the paper mill where I worked. So this job opened up at the Reid State, which is where I had my associate's degree from. And that's how I kind of got into teaching. And the military paid to put me back through school, so I got my bachelor's, and I'm Porch Creek first generation, so I got my master's through that as well. And then through doing all of that and developing apprenticeships, that's how I kind of got into workforce. Made that transition about 4 years ago. And I've been loving it ever since. Reid State is a great place to be. It's a growing atmosphere right now. We're like growing by leaps and bounds. But it's located in Evergreen, Alabama. Everybody's heard of Conecuh sausage, so we're like right across the street. So.
Yeah.
Some good stuff right there.
So that's pretty much how I got to where I'm at. So.
Well, thanks for your service, first of all.
welcome.
We appreciate that.
Thank you for your support.
What was the first course you were instructors for?
It was probably PLC 1, and I had taken it back in 93 to 95, and I was like, I haven't thought about binary numbers and hexadecimals in 12 or 20-something years,
Yeah.
So I had to do some YouTubing real quick.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was probably one of my first classes, and I had to I had nothing. I mean, I had to kind of come in and develop everything, all the way from my PowerPoints to my tests to everything. So it was the first couple of years was tough because, like I said, I had to make every class.
Yeah.
So after that, it wasn't, that big of a deal. Just once you're just doing the same thing every year. So it wasn't too bad.
That's awesome.
And PLCs, I remember when I never knew it. I didn't know that was a thing. When I got to Calhoun to be workforce project manager, the first class was for 3M, a massive company, longtime customer of Calhoun. And it was a Siemens Step 7. And they're like, we need you to find an instructor for this. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does it even stand for? So
Who
same
uses
thing.
these?
Yeah. Like I'm like digging through all this old stuff. And there we had the technologies guys, the 4-credit instructors would teach it. They did a great job. But actually, long story short, PLCs, a very bad PLC class, not those guys, is what led me to call Keith Phillips and say, hey, I need some help for 3M. And that spurred the whole project of the community college workforce and ATM partnership.
Wow.
And because I gave Keith, I said, I got to have some help, but you can't do it at your normal rate. I need something better. And he was like, yeah, okay, no problem.
Make it happen.
And so now that happens a lot. But Keith took that and pushed it out to his people. I was like, hey, let's do this because this makes sense,
So many companies need individuals who understand and can work with PLCs and troubleshoot. And it affects every industry in the state.
Just understanding the language.
Yeah, understanding
That's a lot of what we do is understanding the language of industry.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. And people, when I had that job, they're like, well, how do you know all this? I was like, I don't. But I've got people who do.
Yeah, you know who to contact.
But what I could speak was in those meetings, and you know that you've got HR, you've got production manager, safety manager, quality manager, overall plant manager, logistics, and none of them want to agree on how you should train somebody to do PLCs. And I'm always like, HR, like, shut up. Like, you don't even know what it stands for either.
No,
so
you can't spell PLC.
No. Well, yeah. So that's the hardest part about your job, I bet.
It is. It really is. But that's one thing that has helped me a lot from being in industry over 25 plus years in the paper mill and lumber industry, is knowing the language, knowing what a lot of the people need. And that's how I wound up going about the teaching position, is using my experience in industry of what we did in industry, as far as using flow meters, using valves and stuff like that. So a lot of that experience I was able to pull from.
Mm-hmm. What was your MOS in the military?
Well, I'd spent 20 years in communications. I was 31 mic multi-channel system communications operator. Then we chanced over to MSC, which was more like your cell phones early start. I was a 31 Romeo, but then we changed over to, I was a brigade support battalion. I was a 45 kilo, which is armament repair. So I worked on everything from a 9mm pistol up to an M1 tank. And probably the coolest thing I ever done was I got to drive an M1 tank.
Okay.
Oh,
That was pretty awesome.
Tell us about that.
But it wasn't made for somebody 6'3".
You were like crammed in there.
Yeah, you couldn't close the hatch where the driver was. So, but I had to learn how to drive it to where I could learn how to work on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can actually name the company, but they put electric assist motors in military vehicles. And I went to see them about mills and lathe training one time, and they were all laughing about, and I knew there was a joke, but I didn't know what it was. And they're like, oh, well, we went through all the electronic stuff up in the front. Like, let's go out to the bay and look at the mill. So we're going through these doors, and they hang this hard left, and this door opened up funny. And when you walked out, they had an M1 tank sitting there with a cannon pointed right at the door.
Oh.
And like this massive machine, and you're not expecting it. It was like, it was terrifying just for a split second. You see those things on TV, and you see them even on trailers on the highway, and you don't realize how big they are.
Yeah, they're awesome. I love them.
Yeah. So you said you couldn't close the hatch, so were you like
a turtle?
You drive it like a motorcycle. You got handles and stuff, so your head's sticking out from about shoulders up. So a shorter person would slide down, be able to close the hatch, and they can look through little mirrors. Mm-hmm. And that's how they drive the tank, and they're protected.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get down that low.
Okay. So
you couldn't be protected.
No, I couldn't be protected.
So you were doing the parade maneuver where they're riding down the road. Well, that's really cool. All that stuff, man, all the stuff you get to see and do. I bet
it is. Between that and being able to shoot a 50 cal rifle, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So because you got to, shoot what you work on. So make sure it works.
Man. So those were a lot of different communication roles, and then some very technical roles. And you said one of the things you have to do is knowing how to speak the language. So how do you translate that now into, like, you've got old experienced workforce guys, guys in the plants, and you've got experienced instructors, and now you've got all these new generations, and we hear that all the time, like how to communicate with the millennials and the Gen Zs and whatever's next. So how do you adapt your spiel, your sales pitch to get to that contract or get to that course delivery?
Just trying to give the customer what they want. When somebody tells me that they need a lull operator, well, like your typical person that calls me, well, what's that? What is that? Well, I know what a lull is, and you guys are working with something like that, or a skid steer. I know what a skid steer is. So I try to give them what they want, and in that whole realm, instead of trying to give them something that they don't want. So I just try to meet their needs to the best I possibly can and give them exactly what they want.
I think that's key, because we started out saying, you've got to be able to speak their language and understand what their wants and needs are to be able to serve those needs.
That's
so
true.
I think that is such a key aspect of your role and the importance of understanding industry around you.
Very true.
Yeah. So you've got that side. Then Julie had all the years of experience at ZF.
Yep.
And she was the accountant, so she really was the one that held things up.
And operations manager. Yes. I did a little bit of everything there.
But such a thing. And so we don't get into that world much. I think at some point we will assist manufacturing in some way. I've been working on Keith and Perry Shields. You know Perry from ATN?
No, I do not.
He's from the Coleman, Alabama.
Okay.
So you probably have not met him, but I'm always like, hey, Perry, let us build your hydraulics out. Let us build your PLC out, our model. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. And they never will give it to us. But the point of operations and financial, of making it cheaper and quicker so people aren't off the production lines.
Yes.
A whole lot. So Reid State's in Evergreen, Alabama, and it's fair to say that's a rural area.
Very rural.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite places to go from that exit to Monroeville. That series of roads. I know there's a road called Burnt Corn Road, and I don't know where it came, but that's such a beautiful place. But when you drive and from an outdoorsman, like this is heaven.
It is.
But I've always wondered, like from a workforce development and industry base, like how do you generate jobs and contracts and trainings? Like, what's that like for you? Because it's got to be really.
I thought you were going to ask, do you take bike rides out there?
No,
that's the whole area I grew up in.
Yeah.
I grew up from Monroeville, XL area, so I know exactly where he's talking about. The biggest thing that I do is, try to contact the employers in that area and get to know them and be there for them in any way I possibly can. That's one thing that makes every workforce job different is the whole region. What we've got is different than, say, what Calhoun was than what Evergreen is. Just what you have available, what you have access to. We're very limited in a rural area, so we have to kind of expand out. So we cover everything from Monroeville to Atmore to Bruton to Evergreen to Greenville to Wilcox over in Camden. So we have a wide area. And we try to meet as many of those employers as we can. No matter what that business is, we try to help that employer.
I just did that geography in my head from all those going over to Camden. There's nothing close to Camden.
No.
It's a beautiful place, but there's nothing
But it's
over
empty.
There's nothing.
So, man, I can imagine. And I guess there are a lot of different industries because there's rivers and there's forests and then there's some production facilities.
Yes.
Like,
There's actually some automobile, not a lot, but there's mostly lumber industries, lumber mills, paper mills, things like that. So we have to kind of get to know each and every one. And there's some textiles there, like 10X, that's right there in the middle of Evergreen. They're not a large company. I think they have roughly about 80 employees or so. But we've just got to get to know in every single one that we can.
I know that's hard. Are you able to get some of the same trainings when it's really they really need, like some of the same PLC or hydraulics? Can you deliver the same course over those different industries, or is it something different every single time?
No, it's going to be something different every single time because you've got to tailor it to that employer because not every single hydraulics unit's the same.
Yeah.
There are differences depending on the manufacturer and the plant. So that's where we have to kind of think outside the box sometimes and try to give the employer what they need for their facility.
Interesting. Was it that way at ZF?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always different industry, best practices and things that you're changing up your equipment to make sure you've got the best. And I mean, with automation coming into play as well and robotics, I mean, you're always looking to do continuous improvement on your line to make sure that you're optimizing the, utilization of resources. So you're always looking at cycle times and changing equipment and everything. So it's always something different. And there's always a different need depending on what your current projects are. So especially in the automotive industry, because you're trying to keep up with technology, really.
Would it be pretty common to have different types of PLCs in the same building?
You could, you could. It just depends. Like we had different production lines, and so one line was older than another line, a newer line, and so you may had one vendor supply the PLCs for one, but you had a different technology on another line.
Right.
So you could have different PLCs in there.
Yeah, the big one down south that we use a lot is Allen Bradley.
Yeah.
And that's what Reid State's been typically known for is in providing that type of training. Well, you have some employers that use Siemens. So we have to kind of help make that conversion. I had never worked on a Siemens before, but after I got hired in, we went to a training at Wallace Hansville, and that's the first time I got my experience with a Siemens, but it was similar. So the concept, so you can make that transition.
It's kind of like a piece of equipment. If you know how to operate a skid steer, you can get into a bulldozer, and you just kind of learn the different operations and mechanics of it. They're very similar, but they all have their special features as well, and what makes them different.
Right.
So what I'm hearing you say is that all ladder logics are equal.
I'm not going to agree with that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So I love watching those things, and I would go sit in the classes to do my job and observe, but also just to make sure the customers are happy. But also the geek inside of me, the little boy is like, so you're going to punch some stuff into that box, and you're going to make that robot dance.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing to watch someone who's really honed in on understanding the technology and how to code all of that to make it do what it needs to do and just to troubleshoot. You can walk up and the robot's not doing something, and I mean, they always say don't always take it back to the home position, right? It just depends on where it stopped. But just them understanding how to troubleshoot and utilizing this, it's amazing. I was always in awe and watching them as well in our plant.
That troubleshooting.
And you knew the guys in the plant who knew which robot's better. You two may know this robot over here better than this one over here. And you always knew who your go-to people were.
Yeah. How well versed are you in CNC?
Not much. But
neither.
it's along the same concept of being able to program and stuff like that, and knowing the points on where it needs to hit. We don't have a CNC program at Reid, and I didn't have any kind of training on it at all. It's just from what I know from programming side. Yeah,
we bought a injection molding machine one time through the grants, ICI grants, and it was a nice machine. But when it came, the hopper that fed into the feed tube, the plate was different. The bolts didn't line up, and I'm like, oh gosh, I spent $200,000 and it doesn't match. So I went back and make sure I ordered the right thing, and it all came as a kit, but for whatever reason, it just didn't fit. So Larry Owens from Calhoun, he's like machining guy.
He hooked you up.
I was like, hey Larry, he helped me. He flew it from the truck over the crane over to the thing. And I was like, hey, this thing doesn't fit, man. Like, what am I going to do? And he goes, and he kind of looked, literally, he did like this and flipped it over and like sketched on his hand. And he came back an hour later with a whole new part. Like, he made the whole thing and it fit. And I'm like, hey, Larry, how in the world? He's like, well, he knew, but he looked at that literally. I bet it was a minute.
Yeah, it made sense to him.
And it came back with the perfect part. The holes were drilled.
That's
the
awesome.
thread, the thread depth gauge was
perfect.
I was like, that's black magic, man. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm just going to go home because
he's done that once or twice before.
Yeah, and sure, but we're just watching those guys. You know, and he'd been doing it for 40 years. So good. Troubleshooting. So you mentioned it. What do you see in your classes when you're trying to teach? And we'll get into skills for success in a minute. But when you're doing all of your contract training, how often does that topic come up as just a standalone course that people want?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've got that in the ILT program is troubleshooting. That's probably one of the skills that is lacking today is problem solving, and that's what we try to do in that program. Is just sometimes the problem may not be too complicated. It may be something very simple.
Critical thinking.
You want to go to a different point and try to work your way backwards. But when all in all, it was just simple.
Yeah.
So don't try to overthink it.
Do you think the newer generation has a harder time figuring out how to troubleshoot?
Possibly, and I don't know why that is, but that is a possibility. I think back in the day when we were young, we spent a lot more time, tinkering under the hood or out dealing with whatever. We wasn't playing games and stuff. We were actually working. And I think that kind of helped develop a lot of those problem-solving skills. If you didn't know how to do it, figure it out.
There's a difference in strategy and problem-solving. Yeah. Strategy and gaming versus problem-solving and hands-on.
Right. They're 10 times better than strategy than I ever could be. But problem-solving is probably one area they are.
Yeah, I was listening to my son because he's on summer break, and he was playing Call of Duty last night. And because he's in his room, and then his buddy's in the next room. And there's 40 other kids somewhere, but I heard them talking, and I was intentionally listening to what they were saying, and they were going through in their strategy to pick on Charlie. Yeah, like there's actually not like Vietnam Charlie, like an actual kid named Charlie. They were all hunting Charlie in this game, but listening to their strategy was really cool. Then I'm thinking, if I ask him to go out there and pull the spark plug out of that lawnmower motor. Yeah. all hell's going to break loose because he's not going to know what's going on. But I do that to him a lot. I'm like, hey, I need you to do this thing. And he's like, well, how do I do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I need that thing over there doing that thing, you know, and I just walk away and let him
figure it out.
And most of the time he does. Let's troubleshoot something else. David Allen Cole, the real one.
He likes saying that.
And I really wish we had just some good
music to play with that.
Music from that. That'd be so good. When Joe Johnson was on, he was telling us beforehand when he was younger and when he got into welding, he called himself Long-Haired Joe. And we can just imagine what he looked like.
I can only imagine Joe being long-haired.
But I was just imagining some Whiskey Myers song or something as the bed music for that. But anyway, so let's go back a couple of years, and you heard about this thing called the Innovation Center and Skills for Success, and here we come.
Yep.
And you had to troubleshoot that and figure out how to make it work at Reid. What was that like?
Well, when we first started,
and before you go, like, you can say whatever you want and be real honest because we know each other for a long time, and I'm comfortable with whatever's about to come out of your mouth.
Okay.
And there are no repercussions. Okay, like, we invited you on here to be honest, so because I know how it goes. So I want to know how it really was, and
okay,
go.
Honesty, all honesty.
Yeah.
We kind of helped develop the CDL program, and when we had our first few meetings with you guys, all I heard out of Houston was, that can be done in 2 weeks. It can be done in 2 weeks. I mean, we got an 8-week program, and we want to turn it into a 2-week program. I'm like, that ain't going to happen. Yeah. That just can't happen. Well, we've kind of backed up, and we looked at it and tried to analyze things and go back to the program. Well, can we kind of maybe restructure how we do this or something, or are we doing it right? So to let you know, too, Houston, we have cut our program from 8 weeks to 5 weeks.
Holy cow. Yeah, awesome.
So when somebody starts to drive a 18-wheeler, a manual 18-wheeler, and they've never been in a manual at all, it's not happening in 2 weeks.
No.
It's not going to happen in 3 weeks. It's not going to happen in 4 weeks.
And I was wrong to assume that it could. I'll admit that. Like, I was pushing hard, but
that's all we trained on.
Yeah, we just had there
was other factors leading into why we thought it would take 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and since then I understand why he said what he did, because we have done some Class B
depends.
with
Right,
power
exactly.
companies and stuff. Yes, they get it. They get it, and they get it quickly. Yeah. So they can do it. But your typical Class A CDL, it's going to take 5. It may even take 6. But on average, we can get them done in 5 now. But on that aspect, we have changed to doing some automatics. That's one thing that someone who has never driven a manual needs that extra 3 weeks of learning time to be able to shift those gears like they need to. But a lot of employers have gone to buying automatics.
Sure.
Because of the maintenance issue. So we're working to try to get that problem to add more to our fleet, to do more automatics, and because we've had some, they just couldn't get the manual, and so we've had to bring them over to the automatic.
Yeah. So, fun fact, we like to learn, and all three of us are smart people, and our team is really smart, but we don't know what we don't know when we start, and we don't really, I'll say when we started, man, like, we were given kind of a mission. It's like, hey, go do this thing, and CDL was the first one there was that ELDT rule that was coming out, and we had to have something, and so our biggest T-shirt that we've earned was that one, and not having the colleges involved, and now we've refilmed it, and the colleges are included. So I think that we have, I hope, fixed that wound, healed that wound the best we possibly can. But I'll say I was pushing hard because it was I don't know, I felt like I had my beliefs, but a lot of those were wrong or misplaced or just a little bit misguided.
I think when the Part 380 came out, if you guys had not done CDL, I think the landscape would look a lot different.
What do you mean?
I think it was needed heavily because prior to the cutting out the Part 380, if you just had some time on a farm, you could drive, you just come and get tested, you go. There was no formal training that had to be done. But now, I mean, since they've got the Part 380, now you have to have some formal training. You kind of filled in the gap where it needed to be filled.
Yeah, I wish we'd had more time. But we were on the clock, and the chancellor literally when we were told, he said, we need a CDL for that thing that's coming out. You know, that was the phrase I was told. I don't think that was the chancellor's words, but anyway, so we survived. But here's the thing. So you mentioned that manual, teaching someone to drive a manual that never has. I grew up driving, 4 speeds, 5 speeds, 6
so
speeds.
did I.
But a 10-speed high-low in a
It's a little
semi,
different.
it's a whole different animal. And
It
so
is.
I have never been more nervous and sweating so hard in a car trying to figure out how to do an alley dock in a 10-speed.
It's definitely different.
Without a whole lot of training. So I knew, and this was right before 2022 when the thing. So I knew, even though we were building, I was like, I had that gut feeling like this is not going to fly. But we had a message, and I had to walk that line. So 2 years later, because we're smart and we reflect and we listened.
Yes.
This really came from Paul Sanders. He brought it up to me. I'd had the thought like maybe we could do this, but so basically you put people in an automatic truck, you get them through in 3 weeks, and they can do automatic and do all the things, and they're safe, and they check all your boxes. But then they go and they get a job, and then the employer's like, hey, I know we've got automatic trucks, but I really need you to be able to drive this manual also. So what we're working on for the fall, and we'll have it available then, is a restrictions removal course.
Okay.
So basically, they've got to be an incumbent worker with a letter from their employer saying, hey, and we'll give them a form letter basically to something like that. But hey, here's this person. They've got their license, but they got this restriction. We need them to have no restrictions. And so, and that can include a lot of things, that not just the transmission, but there are a lot of other restrictions that may need some time. That's the main one, but it will be a reimbursement for that. So you could, when needed for the right people, give them that 5 to 6 weeks total drive time to get mastered with the manual. Some folks will go out and get a fleet job and they're all automatics and you never hear from them again. But those few instances. So I don't know what that dollar figure will be. I don't know. I don't think it will match the normal CDL increase that we have for the fall, but it'd be enough to make it worthwhile to give that person the time. So we heard you. I should have heard you from the get-go, but I was stubborn. But we'll make that switch for you. And I think that will be good. We launched that at the CDO thing last week.
Yeah.
We referenced it and got a lot of head nods and eyebrows raised.
Seems to be a big need. Yeah.
I think before you guys come along with that, every school's CDL program was different.
Yeah.
You had, 8-week programs, 6-week programs, 4 weeks programs, 5, whatever. It was all over the board. You guys kind of helped develop some standard to kind of help here too. And I totally agree. 5 weeks is, I think, that mid-mark to where it can be done and can be done safely.
In a manual.
Yes, in a manual.
Yeah. Trentham, Dean Faust at Trentham, he called me one time and said, hey, man, I got this girl y'all sent me. And, and Dean's good old boy country like us. And he's like, hey, listen, man, she's not even 5 foot tall. And she cannot hit this clutch. She can't do it. Like he worked with her for a lot longer than 3 weeks. He said, I got to put her in an automatic. I'm like, well, that's fine, man. Like, it's part of the deal. Like, you're getting a free tuition. Like, at some point, you
do what's best.
You do what's available. And so, and he worked, I think he ended up getting her there, but he's like, man, these little bitty people that have never seen one can't get it done in 3 weeks. And so, and heard that it'd be good. You mentioned that statewide consistency. So, there are 24 community colleges. One of them is Mary Military, and they do their own very unique, beautiful thing. But the other 23 also do their own beautiful things in all things. And it's culture of where they are and the industries are there. But machining looks a little bit different in Dothan than it does in Jeff State than it does in Florence. So part of our mission was to create that statewide consistency for something in all the courses. So, and you mentioned it there for CDL. Have you seen or heard that comment or that need in the other things that you serve? Like for our courses for heavy equipment and, fiber optics, or also all the other things that you teach. Is there a concern from your people about having consistent training across the state?
No, most definitely. What you guys do I think is like awesome. I mean, it's really great. And it's a wide range. I mean, everything from butchering to, heavy equipment and anything in between, and then can get it done quickly. That's one thing I'm hearing from industry is they need it quick. They need it now. They need that help now. But by doing what you guys are doing, you're creating value for that student, for themselves and for the employer. The employer has that faith that that employee can actually do more. It makes them more valuable. It actually gives the employee more to add to his resume to make him more valuable.
Yeah.
So that's what I think you guys are doing, just creating value.
So building that library of resources, of courses that you can go out to industry and say, what are your needs? How can we serve you? And now you have skills for success. Tell us about how that's made a difference in conversations that you've had with the community businesses and trying to figure out how to serve their needs. Does that now give you kind of a leg up to say, hey, guess what? We've already got this now because it's been built through the Innovation Center and Skills for Success. And now it's available to us.
Yes.
No matter if you've got a plant down in South Alabama or one up in North Alabama. And we've seen that too, where companies, they may have, different operations in different parts of the state, and they're looking for that standardization and consistency in training.
Definitely. One thing that there has never been any kind of standardization for is like forklift training. There's been, you haven't been through our training, so you can't get on a forklift. You don't know how to operate a forklift. It's like we want you to operate a forklift. But you guys are coming on with some standard training that would actually standardize that training. And if the industry could just accept that, then I think it's a great thing. That's one thing that there's probably more forklifts than front end loaders than they are anything else. And because you can think of any industry, they got a forklift.
Right.
So, and they had to have somebody to operate it. And it makes that person more valuable to the employer if he can have somebody to operate it, or more than one. But when you guys come along, our jobs as workforce directors was a little different. We've spent a lot of time working with the industry, trying to build short certificates or trying to do apprenticeships, stuff like that. But when you guys come along, it changed our jobs a lot. But it gave us more of a library to pull from for employers. I've had a lot of employers that are like, wow, we get that for free?
Yeah.
You don't cost us anything? Like, yeah, all we got to do is put you through it. We're going through that right now with some skid steer training. We can get through a whole municipality of employees and don't cost the city nothing.
Yeah.
Are you putting them through multiple pieces of equipment?
Not yet, but I will be. We're kind of a little late getting started because I had so much going on with athletics and everything else. We're going to start in the fall of trying to get more stacked on top of each other at the same time, and kind of because when you run this, there's a very efficient way you can run it and to be the most best at it. But yes, that's what I'm looking to do because I've tried to kind of tap into my counterparts. Well, how do I need to run this? How do I need to run that? Because I don't have time to waste money. I need to try to take advantage of what I can while I can.
Yeah. Well, I just saw an email from Destiny Smith to, she's our workforce manager now. And it was something we had discussed, but basically it was how to stack those heavy equipments together.
Yes, I do remember that email.
And so basically, like if you've got skid steer and excavator together, they're both a 2-day course, but if you have enough machines and multiple instructors, you could run that in 3 days. So because everybody's working the whole time. So on day one you do skid steer, and day 2 you do the excavator, and then they're both working the whole time. And
Just a rotation of
no one ever sits and watches, or and so if you do that, and what's cool about that is so you get double the reimbursement. So because some folks don't catch on to that,
right?
That's actually 2 labs.
It's 2 credentials. Yeah, it's 2 labs.
So they don't realize that it is profitable, but you hire the 2 instructors and rent all the machines. So just know going forward you can do it that way, and then you add a roller in there and make it a 4-day course. And municipalities don't often use roller a lot, but they could use the dirt roller, which is what y'all end up using in the labs anyway, typically. Right. So just keep that in mind. We crafted some new parameters to give to y'all. I think very soon it should go out if it hasn't already. Just on, hey, here's how you can bundle to maximize the time for everything, but also to reduce the amount of time those people are away from the job.
Right.
Because if you're getting a municipality out, well, there's other things not being done around town, so you got to be careful of that. But we encourage that creativity, and a lot of our best ideas have come from your colleagues.
Yeah.
Say, hey, can I
Try
try
it
it this
out.
way?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, heck yeah, man. I wish I'd thought of that. That's really smart.
That's one thing about the workforce directors that we deal with on a regular basis. They're more than willing to help us out, to share information on how to run it. It's just a great asset that we have for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember about this time last year, you did a joint food and beverage with Coastal.
We did a joint
Yeah.
food and beverage for Coastal, and I think we did two classes, and we actually just split it.
Yeah.
And that was actually really great, and we're going to be doing some more stuff kind of like that.
That's great.
What's your biggest, from the Skills to Success catalog, what's your biggest request or biggest seller?
Right now, it's skid steer, heavy
Yeah.
equipment, because it can get done so quickly, and it's not over heavily watered down. It's really done quick. They can get out and get a job, get it quickly.
Yeah.
Because you can go through an actual theory part of it in a couple of hours. We've even had a couple of people come in. They wasn't even registered. So we got them online, got them registered. I called Destiny. I said, look, can we get these guys pushed through real quick? So we got them pushed through. They got in the canvas, set them down at the computer for 2 hours. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
So
That's
that was
awesome.
actually a way for us to kind of work them in and get them done quickly and get it done in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. That's good. We love flexibility. You know, one of the hard parts I struggle with is the fidelity of making sure everybody's doing the thing, and we trust that everybody follows the procedures. There's been some instructors who maybe weren't as creative or as thorough, but that happens. You know,
It does.
with any. I think we've been good to catch that. Or at several colleges, like, hey, I heard this guy you recommended. He was an absolute idiot. I'm like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. We'll take him off the list. But it's also a chance to remediate, because sometimes, no matter how many times you tell people and how many times you show them, they don't quite get it. So, but I think it's been really good. Have you had a hard time developing your own local people for these courses to teach them?
No, not really. That's where I kind of use the other avenue. My other job as athletic director is I got all our assistant coaches. They wasn't associated with the college as far as pay wise anyway, so they kind of actually gave them some classes to kind of teach as well, and they gave me more of instructors to pull from.
Yeah.
I got 4 instructors right now I can pull from instead of having to call Destiny every week. You know, so I didn't need another instructor. And the thing about the skid steer is, you know, we may know we may plan on a theory class or a lab class today, but if we don't have students, we don't have a class. Or if the weather's not right, we're not going to have a class. So that very well could change no matter how much we want to have one.
Yeah.
We just can't.
Yeah, that's the thing I've had to let go, you know, to get my Elsa on, because I think in a perfect world, things just happen, and I would probably demand they run it rain or shine, unless it was tornadoes. Tornadoes. But I realized that, you know, things happen, man, and like with any project, things are going to happen, and so when I hear or see cancellations on the calendar, I'm like, well, there's probably a good reason for it.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen every day, for sure. So we're working on Motor Grader. It should be ready end of July. And being from your area, there are tons of county roads, and actually the roads are actually pretty good down there.
They are, but I live on a dirt road, so I need it graded about every 3 months.
So we're pitching that lab to the Lee County, Henry County area, because those are some of the county engineers that helped us craft it. And they've got a couple of instructors. So we're going to do the pilot over there. I'm not sure whether it's college yet, but no, and that's coming. So that's for your municipalities and your county agencies. They'll be able to use that to clean up the roads, and but that won't be an open enrollment. Like, that's only going to be for incumbent workers. You know, so people who've been recommended by the employer as a potential candidate, they've had some heavy equipment experience. We'll definitely not ever run that one in K-12. So it's going to be good, but in those rural areas, it's going to be really handy. I'm going to ask you a hard question. You can not answer it, and this is all teams and family and jokes included. Do you think we're pushy? The answer is yes.
No. No, you're not, but you got a job to do, and you're trying to get it done. Yeah. And I understand that, and you guys have done an awesome job. Just like, you know, dealing with the 2-week thing with the CDL, which that made that program a little different because we had actually a license behind that we had to kind of stick to. But pushy, I would say no. You guys are getting a job done and getting it done well. I mean, you've been tasked with a very big task.
Yeah.
And you're getting it done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And if you had said yes, I wouldn't have been offended because
No,
I
we
think we
wouldn't.
are sometimes.
No.
I am really pushy. All right, so Reid State's got a lot going on. Give us a rundown of the next big things for workforce development and Reid State in general. What's going on down there?
Okay, well, workforce development, we're trying to push more skid steer, excavator, and compactor. We're going to be pushing that more in the fall with a lot of the high schools. I'm going to try to get them through the theory part in August, and then we'll try to go lab heavy in September, October. And then we're trying to get some grants to get some equipment to kind of help cut down on that cost as well. As far as Reid State, we've just started athletics. I'm the athletic director as well. We had a great year in basketball last year. We went 11 and 16, finished 6th in the conference. Couldn't go to the state tournament because we had to do probation, but it's on next year. And then we're coming on with everything else this year. We got women's basketball, women's volleyball, softball, baseball, cheer.
Woo-hoo, look
Everything
at them
else starting
go.
up this year.
Okay.
So we've been really busy recruiting, and we've done a really great job.
That's amazing.
Dr. Boykin's goal for the fall is like 700 students.
Yeah.
And I think she's probably going to hit 8, to be
Okay.
honest with you, because she did not calculate any of the athletes, and we're bringing on about 75 new athletes.
Oh wow.
Wow, well done.
So, but the big announcement for Reid right now is we are a SACS candidate.
Yeah.
They just voted on us Thursday, so we
big
are
deal.
Congratulations.
we are in the candidacy phase
Yeah.
of that. So we'll have another team come on campus in the fall, and then if everything goes right, they'll vote on us for accreditation in December, and that's going to change the Reid State all over. I mean, it's going to be huge. Between athletics and the SACS deal, that is a huge game changer for Reid State.
No doubt.
Yeah. Congratulations, man. I
Okay.
was.
That's
been
a
a
big
long
undertaking
process.
in itself, yes.
And on
It's a
top
lot.
of that, we went through a COE reaffirmation.
Yeah.
So we were trying to go through 2 accreditations at one time, and that was tough. But we passed the COE accreditation or reaccreditation thing, and then now we're going into the SACS, and we've kind of been at a standstill for a couple of years because we couldn't develop anything new because of going through that process.
Yeah.
But once we do get through that process, it's game on. Then.
Game on, yeah.
We're looking to grow and just try to develop as many new programs as we can.
That's exciting. Way to go.
I'm not surprised. You and Dr. Boykin always ask really hard questions. You know, like, hey, about not difficult, but like, okay, well, let's do it. What about this and this? So asking those questions and probing the area to find a way to get those things done, man.
Well,
I'm not surprised at all.
Starting this athletic program up, I mean, it was not easy. I mean,
Yeah.
we did not have any facilities at all.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of partner with the city of Evergreen to renovate the old Evergreen High School gym.
Yeah.
So we put some funds into that. The city put funds in. Now we're having to do the same thing on the baseball side.
Yeah.
So, and eventually it'll all get worked out. But there's a master plan to where we'll have a baseball, softball field on campus, a gym,
Yeah.
everything. All of that will be on campus eventually.
Nice.
But we got to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
But one thing we learned when we was trying to recruit, you know, when you do a typical athlete recruit, you go look at the facilities, you go look at the gym, you go look at the locker room. We had nothing. You
Yeah.
know, we didn't have anything to show them, and to put a team together like we had. And I mean, me and Coach Hines, our basketball coach, would have been happy just to win a game or two.
Yeah.
But you know, we actually did very well compared to what we were playing. We played some larger schools when we. Played Wallace Hansville. They beat us pretty good up there the first time, but they only beat us by 2 when they played them at home. So,
Yeah.
Nice.
Progress.
Yeah.
and then, you know, Marion, we played Marion Military. They beat us with 1.5 seconds on the clock. We were ahead by 2, and they throw up a 3-pointer, and it's like, you got to be kidding me.
That
right?
makes for some exciting games.
It was really
yes.
some exciting. And there were several games that was just really exciting. It's really good for the community. Our first game, we played Coastal South, and they were Division I. We're Division II.
Yeah.
That gym was packed. You couldn't
Oh, that's
fit
what
another
you
person
want.
in it.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think they beat us something like 87, 82. So, I mean, it was
Okay.
it was a good ball game. I mean, everybody loved it. It's really good for the community. It's good for even the neighboring communities.
Yeah.
It's good for a lot of the athletes in the area who couldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we've been doing a lot the past 3 months is trying to recruit. One thing that makes us different is we don't have housing.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of work with realtors around local and try to help out as much as we can doing it that way. But eventually, hopefully, we'll get to that point.
Yeah. Amazing.
You will. All those steps are baby steps to big progress, man.
It is.
Cool.
That's like I said, the biggest thing made it different. We didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Reid State's never had any kind of form of athletics at all.
And now you do.
And I was not an athletic director. I had to kind of figure it out as I went.
Sure.
Yeah, you wear many hats around
so
there.
I just do what I have to, and I'm also teaching too. So I'm still in the
Wow.
classroom as
Holy
much as I
cow.
can. So you name it, I do it, and coach cross country.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
Well, I appreciate that for sure. And you've always been willing to try anything we ask, you know, and push through and figure it out. So that's cool. So I know you'll figure all that out too.
well, it goes back to my military background. You know, your superior tells you to do something, you say yes, sir, and move on.
Well, I would.
Well, you have a great leader in Dr. Boykin.
I do.
Yeah,
She's a
she's
great
done a
boss.
great job with Reid State, and we're always excited to work with you all.
Yeah.
We know that y'all have a passion for serving the community and your students, and we've seen great work come out of Reid State and excited to continue that.
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do, is for the students.
And that's what I was going to say. I wish that every college had a president like Dr. Boykin who understood the assignment and found a way and
Yeah.
you know
She's going to find a way.
figured out what she's doing. So which I
Yeah,
think
she's
that's good.
great.
Well, good. Well, we're almost out of time, so we appreciate all that, Dave. Julie, final thoughts?
Yeah, thanks so much for coming in. We just want to give everyone an opportunity to share about your college and what you're doing to make a difference in the state and around your community for workforce and athletics and the same. We're excited to see kind of your fall high school students get involved and how we can help those students with career and college readiness and being able to enter the workforce. So we're excited to see great things still to come from Reid State. So thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. It was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, man. Thanks for making that drive.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
So, Julie, why don't you close us out?
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening in or watching in today for Innovation Unplugged. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us on all social media platforms. Have a great day.